looks good, you guys. Look at that. In today's video, we're gonna be working on this 24-foot car trailer, car hauler. Let's get into it. And welcome back, guys. So we're gonna be working on my enclosed car trailer, and not that it necessarily needs anything, but we're gonna be using this thing and going on a long adventure trip with it. So I want to make sure it's all good, all set up for the road. And this might be a two-part series. We'll see how far we get in today's video. Well, we got a few things. This trailer is a used trailer. It's in really good shape, but doesn't mean we can't go over some things. We want to make sure all the tires are fairly new, so we've got that covered. I do have to pick up a spare, but not really much to do or see there. I want to check the bearings. I think I want to re-grease them. Definitely going to re-grease them or repack them, and then also check the brakes on them. So I want to make sure that all that stuff is good and ready. But what I want to do first thing is, before the store closes, is there is a battery inside of the trailer so that you can use the winch and all that stuff. So it's 12-volt battery, but it's the same age as the trailer. It's way old and dead. So we're gonna pull that battery out of there, and then we also got a few other things as well, but let's get the battery out of there. We're also gonna be installing a new winch, so a lot of little things to see with the trailer, but let me show you guys the inside if you guys haven't seen it already, and we'll take out that battery. All right, so here is the trailer. If you guys have or haven't seen, we did repaint the whole front of it. It was just kind of a, I don't think they really do that good of a job from the factory putting a coat of paint on it, so we ended up getting it all freshened up in the front. So this was all kind of rusty looking. We cleaned all that up. My buddy Alan over in Arizona helped me out with that. And inside the trailer, like I was mentioning, we're gonna open this up. Here is the worn winch that's in here, and there's the battery. So I want to disconnect that, and we'll get this out of there. Like I said, there's a date stamp of 2013 on that battery, so it's definitely definitely, what is that, 8 years old. So yeah, quite a ways. So let me just get some wrenches, get that out of there. All right, well, battery's out. Off to Walmart we go. All right, let's get this battery in there. Okay, so we got the battery in here. What I'm gonna do is put the old leads back on just so I can wind this thing up. So we're gonna go ahead and wind it all the way up. That way it's all bundled up while I still have all the power and the control unit, because our new Anvil one does have all new controls and boxes and control units and all that stuff. So let's do that quick. Okay, so I've got this thing all wound up, so that means we can start unbolting it and getting it out of here. Okay, so I went underneath. You guys didn't miss anything. I took out the 4 bolts that are holding this, and now this should be free. I'm gonna go ahead and take this plate, and you guys already know, I'm gonna clean it up a little bit, paint it black, might as well since it's out. That way we can keep everything looking fresh in this cabinet. Okay guys, so here is our Anvil winch. It is rated for 17,000 pounds. So a huge shout out to these guys. I will link this winch down in the description below. This thing is an absolute beast. So I'll show you guys a few things about it. It does come with its own control box here, and it's kind of cool. It has this mounting bracket for this, whereas I'll show you guys on the other one, it doesn't have it as a separate control unit, and you got to figure out where to mount it. So they give you this bracket, which is cool. You could also remove it if you wanted to, but I kind of like the fact that it mounts to the winch so that we only have to mount this to the actual floor or whatever you happen to be mounting it with. You don't have to look for 2 mounting locations. Once you get the winch mounted, then like I said, you can mount this to the actual winch itself. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Everything's color coordinated. So you got yellow to yellow, we got black to black, and then red to red. So we have all that. And then the other thing too is it comes with our power cable. So this is going to go to our negative lead, and then this is going to go to our positive lead on our battery. It does have our remote. So this is our remote, our corded one, you know, in, out. That's pretty self-explanatory. And that plugs into the side of our control unit right here. But it also does have this wireless remote, a Bluetooth remote. So you simply turn it on, and then you can push it, you know, out, in. You get the idea, and it already comes with batteries ready to go. So nice thing about winches, I'm learning along with you guys, is they do all have similar mounting points. So they all do share mounting points. So you can swap out different winches, meaning that we don't have to drill new holes in the floor, which is obviously good. We can go ahead and just bolt this up with the pre-existing holes in the floor and all that good stuff. So let's get this thing in here. Let's get it fired up and wired up, and we'll see how she works, and we'll test this out towing our vehicle into the trailer. Okay guys, so I just went ahead and wired everything up. Like I said, the negative is here and connects to the bottom, and then everything else from here goes to the top straightforward, and then this goes to our positive on our battery. So we've got our positive, our negative, so that'll go to our battery, then everything else should work. It's pretty cool too. This is all integrated into this box, so we don't have to wire up anything to make this remote work either. So what we're gonna do now is get this in here. It's a couple days later. I ended up painting this both sides instead of having that rusty plate there, and we're pretty much ready to drop it in. Like I said, those 4 bolt holes will all line up. I already did check, so it's a plug and play affair. So we're gonna put it on. I'll send my bolts back up through the bottom. Not too much to see there, but I'll go and do the dirty work of getting those back up through there, and we'll get this thing mounted up. Okay guys, we got everything in here. We got our positive connected, our negative connected. This little thing is a fuse. This is just pre-existing wiring, and this comes from our actual trailer, so that when you're hooked up to the truck, it recharges the battery. We got the battery here to run the winch and everything else. The other thing too is this plate is going to go on the front. There's 2 positions where you can mount it. So I'm going to go ahead, we'll throw it on there with the bolts, pass this through. Right now we'll go to free spool so we can pull this thing out a little bit. And then I can pass this through and put our 2 bolts in. Okay, so we got our front plate on there, and we got our hook on. I just had to put that on. It's just a little cotter pin that holds it in. And now she's all together. But anyways, we'll pull this out a little bit. This thing is an absolute beast. And I'm gonna get this out of here for a second, and then we should be able to test it out. To engage like that, and now if we hit the button, she should go. So we got a remote, turn the switch to on, hit in. That's pretty sweet, you guys. So, like I said, you can hit out and pull. If you wanted to go this way, if you don't want to free spool it. In. There we go. So the winch is all in and installed, but we will be testing this out with the truck. I just want to get some other things situated on the trailer first. We also have some cool straps as well that we're going to be showing you guys. So we're going to test run the Dakota in here, get it all strapped down. We're going to pull it in with the winch at the end of this video, so stick around. I want to check out the wheel bearings and see how that stuff all looks, as well as the brakes. So let's go check that stuff out. So we got the wheel off, and what we're going to do right now, there is a little bit of side to side play, as you can hear in the bearings. So hopefully you guys can hear that. So they could be tightened up a little bit. What we're going to do is pop off this dust cap, and it's it's a nice setup. They do have the grease nipple on it as well underneath this rubber cap, but we're going to take the whole cap off. So we'll just pop it off out of here, because we're going to take that nut off. That way we can get this whole drum off, so we can see what kind of brakes we got inside here. But they do spin nice, so we should be good there. It's just we got to take it off to see what the brakes are at. And there we go. So that's off. Like I said, you can see the grease nipple. All right, so you'll see there's a little retainer here to keep the nut from coming loose, but look at how loose the nut is. Definitely should have a bit more preload on it than that. But now what we can do is we're going to take off this little retainer here. So I'll pull this off, and then we can go ahead and we'll take the nut off so we can take this whole thing off. So there we go with the retainer. So that's off. And like I said, this should be a little bit tighter than that for sure. Pull the drum off, it's going to take this outer bearing out. So we can inspect our bearing. It looks good. You can feel it. There's no grittiness, so we're good. It's just they need to be tightened up a little bit, so we'll get all that sorted out. And we're going to take the whole thing off. Okay, well the bearings look okay, but I think I'm gonna replace the inner seal. This thing's pretty, it's not the newest trailer in the world, so I'm gonna replace this seal because it feels like it's a little bit hard and it's letting grease kind of sling in here. This is probably a little bit of brake pad material, but there is kind of grease coming out the back side as well. So I'm gonna order 4 seals, so I probably won't get a chance to do all the brakes today. These here, as far as pads, apparently 3/16 of an inch is what it comes with brand new pads. Obviously these aren't new pads, but it looks like I have just over 1/8 of an inch, so we still got quite a bit of pad left on these. I'll end up maybe we'll check them after we come back from this big trip, but with, like I said, we're probably down 1/16 on these pads, but still, you know, 2/3 of what they originally are, so we should be okay. Also, if you're wondering, these little holes, I had to kind of scrape them off because they were kind of full of grease again because of the grease seal. But if you are missing these 4 holes, if they're completely sheared off or worn away, then you have to replace this. This is the mechanism for the brake, but I had to kind of clean out the holes, but they do still exist, so it should be still fine on that. But what I'm going to do right now is I want to check the condition of this side as well for now. Like I said, we're not going to be able to do anything with this today since I need to order those seals. I can't really find them locally. Again, this seal here that we're going to replace, but I'm going to check this, make sure we're kind of same life as far as brake shoes on this one, and then we'll have a better idea what we got. Okay guys, so we got the same thing on this side. Like I said, probably down 1/16 on those shoes, but everything else looks half decent. You can just tell that our seal in the middle has seen better days because it's kind of slinging grease out of there. So everything feels smooth on the rotation stuff, but we're gonna have to tighten up the bearings. We're gonna clean them, repack them, all that stuff, and we should be good for a while. But like I said, probably gonna be needing some shoes later, but no point in changing them at this point. Service limit is 1/16 or so, but we're far from that, so we'll go ahead and order some parts. It looks like it's gonna be the same on all 4 sides. It's gonna need new seals on the inside. Okay guys, well, it's a few days later and the seals finally have arrived for our trailer. So you can see here, obviously the seal has given up and it's been slinging grease inside here. So we're gonna clean this up. I'm gonna pop this out. I did get just a cheap seal puller, but it doesn't have to be an expensive one. They all do the same thing. That'll go in there. We'll pop out that seal, and then our bearings in there. We're gonna clean it up. And I also got this tool. This was like $7 or $8. I can link it for you guys. This is a universal bearing packer. So we've got that, and we're gonna take this out, clean up our bearing, we'll throw it in here, force some new grease through it, put it back in, and then we can put in our new seal so that that doesn't happen. Okay, so I just cleaned all the crud out of there, used some acetone to clean up our surfaces so that if there's any grease on it, we're clean. And now I'm gonna pop out this seal. There it is. That's probably the better way of doing it, is prying off of that. So prying off the bearing, because the other way was pushing it back in. All right, she's out. Ew. Yeah, this old seal, I don't know if you guys can see, but the ridge on it looks like it's barely up versus this one. It's got a really nice high ridge, so these ones will do the trick. They're double walled as well, so I'll toss this guy out. We're gonna take out our bearing. I should probably put a paper towel down because it's gonna get messy real quick. Lots of grease, which is good. And I mean, the bearings are in really good shape. There's just lots of this grease in here that we're gonna replace with a better grease. This is just like standard looking grease that's in here, so I'm gonna put some a little more expensive grease, but better for peace of mind. So I'm gonna scrape all this out of here. I'm gonna dry this out, clean it up, even though it doesn't look dirty or anything, which, like I said, is, again, is a good sign. But I'm just gonna get all this old junk out of here, and then we'll get to the new stuff. All right, so hopefully you guys can see. You want to inspect your races, make sure that they are good. So races look beautiful on both sides. Cleaned out all the old grease. I'm just gonna clean this again once more since we kind of had a bit of a grease sling show over here. And I'll get this prepped up so that we can drop that bearing back in once we repack it. So I'm just cleaning off this old grease. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but you'll notice it's really thin. Like, it is extremely runny looking. So that's the reason why I'm just trying to clean it off as best as possible, even though, you know, it is lubrication. The stuff we're gonna be putting in here, since we're in the south, is gonna give us better wear protection. It's a little bit thicker, a little more high quality than just this standard generic grease that we got in here. So anyways, that's pretty much cleaned up. I'm gonna force some new grease through it in just a second, and I'll show you guys that process. All right, so we got our bearing, and this is our bearing tool. I've never used one, but it's pretty ingenious. So the way it works is it's got a grease nipple on the end. It's got this hole here, and that's gonna screw into here. And what that's gonna do, it's gonna allow grease to come through here, and it's gonna force the grease through the bearing. So it's gonna come up, it's gonna hit this cone, it's gonna force it through here and out the rollers, so that this thing has freshly packed grease through it. You can use the old method, and I used to do the one where you kind of put in grease in your palm and kind of work it through, but this thing is pretty trick, so kind of excited to try this thing out. We'll get out our grease gun. I wish I had a pneumatic one, but I got a hand pump one, so we're gonna be pumping quite a bit here, boys. Okay, so once you end up pumping enough grease to get the center to fill up with grease, you can see it's starting to shoot grease out right there. And as I pump, so check it out. See how all the old grease is coming out of there? So I'm gonna do that until I see this new grease coming through, which is kind of like a green color. All right, so I can see my green grease starting to flow through. So there we have it, you guys. So she's definitely packed full of grease. We'll wipe some grease around the surrounding edges. And this bearing definitely has grease in there. But putting some on the race, try not to touch my camera, unfortunately, because I got this stuff everywhere. So I'm just gonna put it on the race, and I'm gonna drop in the bearing so that we can reinstall our seal. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the front one in here. Okay, so we got the bearing back in there, all full of fresh grease. Now we can get our seal back in there as well. So I do gotta invest in a pair of seal drivers at some point, but for now, this old tried and true method. Make sure it's all flush, and it is. And this one's ready to go back on. So back over here, I'm just gonna use some brake clean, spray this down, wipe off our pads and whatnot, just in case there's any grime on it. So it's hard to tell whether it's, you know, potentially grease or if it's just brake dust. But either way, we'll wash it off. And I'm gonna clean all this off so that we have all fresh and new grease all inside, because this is gonna be all internal. Again, we do have the grease nipple on the end here, so we can fill these up with grease as well. So you probably could get away with not doing, you know, the packing, but I'm just making sure that it is going to be 100% for us here. If you had a problem with your brakes, you could check them. Essentially this magnetizes, which moves this arm. So if your brakes weren't working on one particular wheel, you could check this by engaging it and seeing if a piece of metal sticks to this, because it's just a magnet. So that's how that one works. Anyways, that's all clean. Let's go ahead and slide that thing on. Like that. Now we can throw our outer bearing on. Just put a little bit of grease on the face there, and then we'll slide this bearing in. Next up is the washer, and then the nut. Okay, so we got this one on. We'll deal with preload and tightening this, but at least she's on spinning smooth. We still got the other one to do as well, and still got the other side. So let's get going so we don't run out of daylight here. All right, check this out, you guys, just so you guys know what kind of work I'm putting in lately. So I don't know if you guys can see, but I've got these two on. Probably barely see. So that one's on, that one's on. I'm working in the dark. And then I got the other one. The other reason I'm working in the dark is because it's like 105 during the day right now, so I'm trying to work when it's a little bit cooler out. And then I've got this one here. This one's done, cleaned up, and I've been scraping out all the junk. I honestly think this is grease that's built up in here. So from this thing slinging, and these seals are just roasted. So they're real bad, which is a good thing I got new ones. But what I'm doing is just taking this, and look at that. I'm just scraping all the crud that's built up here because I don't want it to get into the brake pads. And then when I put it back together, like I'm degreasing all this using acetone, wiping down all of our drum surface. And the shoes, I'm actually cleaning off as well, make sure there's no crud on there. But I've just been shoveling all this. I'll show you the pile of junk that comes out of this. So that's the pile of junk that comes out, and that's what it looks like all cleaned up. Ready to take the seal out, repack the bearings, all that good stuff. So I'll catch you guys when I have all this done and onto some more exciting stuff. Okay, well, it's the next day. I stayed up in the dark putting these all on. So once you get everything on here, you want to tighten this nut down. I think it's the official spec, something like 50 foot-pounds, but don't quote me on that. But anyways, you tighten it down so you seat the bearings, and then you loosen the nut off. And then once you loosen it off, you're going to tighten it until it's finger tight, and that's it. So you can see they're spinning beautifully. If you over tighten it, then you're gonna end up heating up your bearings. So you only wanna have it finger tight like that. And we'll put our retaining clip on. So same thing with all of them. You tighten it down, loosen it off, finger tight, retaining clip. So there it is, it's on. And if your retaining clip isn't, how do I explain this? If your retaining clip, isn't in the exact position, you want to go on the side of loose rather than over tightening the bearing. So if you have to try to decide between too tight or too loose, go a little bit looser. So there we go, all four are done. Now we just gotta pump all that grease in there. Okay, so I got them all pumped full of grease. You kind of spin them at the same time, just so you can distribute the grease in there. And I'm just gonna fill them up like that. Not gonna go crazy. These caps were completely packed full of grease. So if we want in the future, just so we can service it quickly, the cap gives us room for expansion for the grease, that much grease, which is quite a bit. So if we want to give a few pumps here and there, the cap allows us that room to do so. So they're all good to go. I'm gonna put all the caps on, get the wheels on. All right, so wheels are on. Next up, I took off this thing for the overhead vent. It looks really yellow. I've done this before, even actually in my home. I use this. It's for plastic, also bonds to plastic, says right there, and it's paint and primer. So you just spray it. I did this to some of the vents, the washroom vents or bathroom vents. I used it on that, worked really good, so I can do the same thing on this. And also this thing I'm holding in my hand is for the roof vent. I had to kind of make up this little armature thing. The original one was plastic and it broke, so the vent was just flew open by itself. So I noticed that, so this is gonna be all steel instead of plastic, and we'll paint that. All right, so there's that thing all drying. Let's put this on. So here's a little thing I was talking about that goes through there and it rides in there like that. It broke, the little piece broke off that was plastic, and this was like hanging way up. So we'll get all this back in here and all the insert stuff. And there we go, you guys. So this all works now. Crank works and it looks all white. It was like disgusting yellow stained before, or faded. So that pretty much wraps up all the stuff in here. Next thing is to get that weight distribution hitch on here. All right, so I put the weight distribution hitch on there. I'll let you guys watch those videos. They're kind of boring, but I got it on there. You kind of have to take some measurements and whatnot, get everything on there. But essentially what it does is, the best analogy I've heard so far is like grabbing the handle bars, or the handles on a wheelbarrow, and lifting them up. That's essentially what the weight distribution hitch is doing to the back of my truck. And now my truck is sitting way better. So I'll show you guys that in a second. And then I have two of these. So these are the sway control bars, but we do have to drill a few holes and put the ball, or mount the ball to the frame. So I have two of them. I'm gonna put on at least one of them for now. Some guys just run one or two, but I mean, I've got two, and I gotta figure out where to put it. But essentially what you do is measure 24 inches from the center of the ball to the frame, and that's where we're gonna have to mount this. So I gotta drill some holes, insert our screws, and get that on there. Okay, so here we go, guys. Here's a weight distribution hitch, and 24 inches from here all the way to this dot. So I measured the center. Also gonna put on both. I have a left and a right. Here's my other dot. So we're gonna put both brackets there and then put in these screws that are supplied. Got the drill, center punch, everything. Let's do it. Okay, so I got 2 of them in there. I gotta mark the other 2 holes, drill them, and get those bolts in there. Okay, so we got that one done. And the way this works, this one's gonna sit on there, and that one's gonna sit on there. And we got these 2 pins, and they go in and holds that like that. So this one is the reverse opposite. I guess since I have both, I might as well put it on. Since we're towing with a lighter truck, probably is only gonna help for those long distances. Okay, there we go. We got both sides on, mounted. So that's done. Let's go to the fun stuff and putting the truck in. Okay, here we go with the fun part, guys. So we are going to get the Hellcoda with its big brake kit and all into the trailer. So we're about to use our anvil winch and pull the Hellcoda up. So we could drive it, obviously, but this is just gonna make one-man loading a little bit easier. I'm gonna hook it onto the lower control arm using a bunch of straps that we got. We've got all tie downs and whatnot from Mr. Gasket. So they make these awesome over the axle straps. Huge shout out to Mr. Gasket. I will link these in the description below. And we also have ratcheting straps. I've got a whole box of them here that are gonna go to the D-rings in our floor. So I will link these down in the description where you guys can go check out the exact same ones we're going to use to tie down the Hellcoda. And you can see we have a series of D-rings all throughout this floor, which is actually nice because most trailers only have like 4 standard and then it's optional to add them. So it's nice that we've got them all over the place. That way we can have some options loading this thing. So I'm going to hook that Mr. Gasket axle strap. I'm going to go over top of the lower control arm. We're going to hook that up to our winch. We'll drag it in and I can just use the Bluetooth remote, make steering corrections and drag it all the way up. So I think it's gonna work out great. Let's do it. So I've got this set up to free spool there. So that means I can just pull this and it'll come right out. Or you could hit that, you know, unravel button or out button on the remote, but this is gonna be a little bit easier. All right, so check it out, you guys. We've got the Mr. Gasket over the axle strap hooked up to our anvil winch. Right there, we even got this cool little protective blanket over top of the rope as well, but it's low enough that it's not gonna end up rubbing on anything. And now we just gotta put the truck in neutral. Just before that though, we're gonna take our Bluetooth remote, switch it to on. We're also gonna switch this from free spool back into engage. Take our Bluetooth remote, go all the way down there. Let's put some tension on it first. I already tested, it's not gonna roll away. We're pretty much on flat ground, but always wanna make sure. So these are a little bit funky animals to put into neutral, so that's why I've been leaving this thing off lately. That's how you put this crazy thing in neutral with the engine off. And we'll use this. We got the window down and we're gonna steer it up and in. So we'll double check, make sure we're not touching anything, and it looks good, you guys. Look at that. So I'm just gonna sit back here. I'm gonna guide it with the steering. Probably could go a bit more to the right and you guys can watch me bring it in. You guys, it's getting a little dark out, but this is too easy. Like, this makes it almost fun. Like, literally we're just sitting here with the button and you're just guiding it in. You don't have to Ricky Bobby it out through the window or try to open the door later. So we're just gonna pull it straight in like this. So we're just about in, you guys. And even like if you wanted to go out, so for example, if we push out, if you wanted to make some sort of correction, back in. All right, guys, so we're pretty much running out of light, and I'm gonna take this out because I'm actually taking it to go get an alignment tomorrow. I just wanna make sure everything works and fits, and it does. That anvil winch worked awesome. So what we essentially would do is we would put in park, and I'll show you guys on the back axle straps, but we got 4 of these. So again, thanks to Mr. Gasket for hooking us up with these. So we got 4 of these. We already got one on the front lower control arm. So once we took off the winch, we'll end up putting the strap on. So we'll use this ratchet strap, ratchet to the front ones. We'll duplicate that on both sides, and I'll show you guys what we'll do on the back. So here's the setup on the front, you guys. We've got that. We've got the axle strap loop right there going over top, and it's gonna work beautifully. On the back, you can either use the same loops, or I think there's actually some spots on the frame, so we don't necessarily have to use these. I'll show you guys that. So here we go on the back, you guys. Just go up something like this, and there's a nice spot on the frame on both sides where we can put these straps, and they're in the locked position. I gotta play with the position of the truck. I think it's probably half decent. Could maybe go forward a little bit. You know, this thing doesn't have a lot of weight in the back, but I'm gonna have to play with the position, see if we want to come any forward after this, but you guys get the idea. She's in here. We'll see how she tows, see how it feels on the road and all that stuff once we get going. All right, guys, so it's gonna be a wrap for today's video. So I will link all the products that we use, the anvil winch, the Mr. Gasket straps, all that stuff that we use to get this done. I'll link it down below. Let me know what you guys think of this tow rig. I think it looks pretty decent. She looks all pretty good as well. I'm liking the way the whole thing looks as well, and now it's gonna function as it should. And we already went through everything. The only thing I do have to do is pick up a spare tire, but that's not that interesting. I'm gonna do that in the next few days so that we have one, because it didn't come with one. But if you guys enjoy this type of content, give me a thumbs up. Let me know what your favorite part of this little series is and this little build on the trailer. And also, I think I need to get some LEDs for inside. Those two bulbs seem to be burnt out, and they're not that bright anyway, so I'll see what I can do there. But or if you guys know something, comment it down below and let me know. Thanks, guys. See you guys on the next one.